Hey, Stacey David here, and this is the Tales of a Gearhead podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals since 1919. That's right, over 100 years building tools and still going strong. If you need tools, check them out. You won't be disappointed. All right, let's get rolling. All right, this next question comes from Steve, and Steve has a really unique question. A question that doesn't get asked very much, and it should get asked more often. He says, hey, Stacey, I'm getting ready to sell my vehicle. And he says, what's the criteria for the test drive? What should I allow the person to do? What should be done? Is there a general dynamic that happens for test driving a vehicle? Man, I tell you what. That is a great question. Let me fill you in on some things that happened to me over the years and what I would suggest about test drives. Now, there's two aspects of this. One is when you are test driving another vehicle, and the other is when somebody is test driving your vehicle. So let's dive into this. Okay, first of all, when you're looking at a vehicle, you're going there to test it. So whether it's on a car lot or whether it's an individual. So basically, you're not there to smoke the tires. You're not there for a joyride. You're there to discover some things about that vehicle because you are serious about buying it. If you are not serious about buying it, then you're just wasting everybody's time. That sort of person later, when you're the one selling the vehicle, you got to watch out for those kind of guys. Because I've gotten suckered by a couple of those guys over the years as well. But anyway, let me give you an example about how not to do a test drive. I had just graduated high school, and a friend of mine pulls up in the driveway, and he says, hey, man, I'm going to go look at this car. I want you to come with me because you're a car guy. And I'm like, well, yeah, let's go. I never turned that down. So we run down to this used car lot, and my buddy is looking at a little Triumph Spitfire, little convertible. And he goes, yeah, he says, I want to take it for a drive, and this is my buddy Stacey, and we're going to look it over, and just, yeah. And the guy goes, yeah, take it down the road, and just let me know what you think. So we jump in this car, and I can tell real quick Chuck's not really interested in this car that much. He's in it for the test drive. So we zip around a little bit, and he goes, hey, let's go pick up some girls. And I'm like, we're on the test drive. Well, we drive over to some friend's house. They're out at their pool, and so he goes, hey, you guys want to take a ride in the convertible? And I'm sitting there with my mouth hanging open. 3 girls jump in the back of this. Now, if you've ever seen the Triumph Spitfires, they don't have much of a back seat, as in none. So these girls are sitting on the trunk with their feet in the well and riding on the car as we're going down the road. And the thing is bottoming out like crazy. The tires are rubbing because there's so much weight on it. And he's zipping around town. Okay, and I'm like, Chuck, you know, we kind of need to get this car back. This is not a test drive. I'm just waiting for the cops. And I kid you not, this guy drives this car around for a couple hours. And I'm thinking, the guy's going to report this thing stolen. And now, car starts to overheat. It's boiling over. It's summertime. You know, and I'm like, Chuck, we got to get this thing back. And we drive it back. He drops the girls off. So we take it back. And the guy's looking at us, the used car guy. He didn't really say much about it. And then Chuck's kind of like, well, you know, let me think about it and that kind of thing. And we jump in his car and we drive off. And I'm like, you never intended to buy that car, did you? He goes, oh, heck no. He said, I just want to do a test drive. And I'm like, mental note, be on the lookout for people like that. I mean, to this day, I am just shocked that not only did he get away with that, but that he actually had the nerve to plan on doing that. So with that in mind, remember that there's guys like that out there. And especially if you've got a performance vehicle, you got to watch them. That's why, number one, don't ever let somebody test drive your vehicle if you don't go with them. If you got a 2-seater, a Corvette or something, and a guy and his dad come out and they want to take it down the road, you go with them one at a time. Don't ever turn your keys over and not go on the test drive with them. Now, you may disagree with that, but I'm telling you, I have seen too much crazy happen. Another thing to remember, and this gets into actually a secondary part of this question. As long as they're test driving it, you still own it. If they take that car out and total it, guess what? You got a totaled car. You can't hold them liable. They're just test driving it. They'll get in it and they'll walk away from it and they'll go, well, yeah, it's wrecked. I mean, you can try to sue them, you can do whatever, but it's just a mess. So protect yourself on this. Let them drive it. Say you have a real high performance vehicle. Unless you personally know the person and know they can handle the car, don't let them uncork it. You uncork it for them. You're like, listen, let me show you what this car will do. You get over there in the passenger seat and let me uncork this thing and let me have you soil your drawers in the passenger seat, not while you're trying to drive this thing and hold on to it as you wrap it around a pole. So protect yourself on something like that. If they know the vehicle and if they know you, they should know what it's capable of, so you don't have to do that. Now, if you're selling a race car and somebody wants to test it as a race car, say you're selling it to another racer, then take some time, take it out to a track, and let him do some track time with it. But keep in mind, if he wrecks it on the track, you got a wrecked car. So be careful there. There is a chance in anything that you buy used that you could tear it up. And you want to lessen the risk to you and make sure they're bearing some of that risk. So that's for if you're selling something. And obviously we've talked about if you're getting ready to buy something. Now, let's dig a little deeper into that. When you're buying and selling a vehicle, when do you own it and when is it actually sold? And I'll be really straight with you guys. The vehicle is never sold until the money and title changes hands. The second the money and title changes hands, it is yours or it is theirs, whichever way you're going with it. Now, why is this important? Why you're like, come on, that's obvious, Stacey. You're not telling me anything I don't know. Well, let me give you a situation. You pull up. You like the car. You say, I'll take it. They start loading it on your trailer. They bust the car up, loading it on the trailer. Now what are you going to do? Is it your car or is it theirs? Who pays for the mistake? Well, if you haven't paid for it, it's not your car yet. That's why before anybody touches it, you make the deal. Money changes hands, the title changes hands. Then, if they screw it up loading it, if they screw it up backing it, someplace, it's on them. It is their car. 20 seconds ago, but it's theirs. And then, if they want to come back and go, well, man, I just tore the car up, man. I don't, it's like, well, it's your car. But if you haven't made the deal, it's still your car. Then they can walk away from it. Let me tell you what happened to me one time. I went to look at this 39 Buick Coupe. And I love the grill of a 39 Buick. Man, I've been looking for one of these things forever. And I go look at this car. I had the trailer on the back of the truck and everything. And it's a nice car. And so I get there and I'm like, all right, I'll take it. I'll go ahead and back my trailer up your driveway and we'll get ready to go. He goes, great. Now, keep in mind, I'm backing a trailer up a driveway. So you can't see real well. This idiot takes the pieces of the hood and lays them out on the driveway. In the path of the truck as I'm backing it up. I can't see that. So I'm backing up and he's nowhere to be seen. And I back the trailer right over one of the hood sides, one of the flat sides. I get out and I'm like, I wanted to kill the guy. And he's just looking at me like, I'm like, seriously, you saw me backing up the driveway. Anyway, once we're past that, okay, here's the thing. I haven't paid for the car yet. So it was completely within my right to say, I don't want it now. Because the mistake happened while the car was still his. Now that gets into kind of a gray area there because I did say, hey, I'll take it. But here's the thing you have to remember, guys. When you give your word on something, that's based on the agreement right then. That agreement can change immediately if you find out something else you didn't know. If the guy's been lying to you, if he's like, oh yeah, by the way, the title's not in my name. You got to jump through hoops, or I don't have a title. Well, then it's like, whoa. Okay, 2 seconds ago I just told you I'd take it, but now, I don't want to fight with a lost title or something like that. So keep in mind that those decisions happen as information comes up. So that's why once the money changes hands, once the title changes hands, it is officially yours. Now, say the guy did lie to you or whatever. Then you can come back and go, listen, you were not honest with me. I want my money back. And if he's any kind of a decent person at all, they'll give their money back. For example, just like with that Buick thing, I got out, I looked at it, it just wrinkled one of the hood sides. It's, 20 minutes with hammer and dolly, and, it didn't change the deal. I was like, yeah, I'll take it. But it could have been a lot worse. If I'd have gone right over the top of the hood center or something else, yeah, that could have affected the deal. So just bear that in mind. And it was a reminder to me. I've always thought about that. I always make sure the paperwork is done, because you don't know how people are going to be able to load trailers. You don't know what kind of stuff they're going to do. So once again, you got to protect yourself on this stuff. And just realize that once the money and things change hands, it is officially yours. If it gets off the trailer on the way home, no money back. That's all on you. So make sure you're taking care of that. And look out for those wacko test drive guys. Look out for those guys like Chuck. I wonder what Chuck's doing now. He's probably a used car salesman. Oh, that's funny. I'll have to look him up. I talked to a guy the other day, and it wasn't too long before we started talking tools. That always comes up. And he said the stuff on the trucks are just too darn expensive, man. It's just for rich people. And I laughed and I asked him how valuable his time was. And he said he didn't understand the question. And I explained that the more time he spends messing around with cheap, crappy tools, the more time you waste getting nothing done. And time is a commodity we all have in limited supply. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, maybe I'll look into some of those tools on a truck. He won't be disappointed, neither will you. Check him out. I was out at an event this weekend. It was just a really great event. It was this UCC, the Ultimate Callout Challenge. And it was all this diesel drag racing and sled pulling and stuff. It's just a great event. If you ever get a chance, you need to go check one out. But I got into a conversation with a young mechanic, and we were just talking about the challenges that some of the younger generation is facing that wants to get in. And he was into the automotive market, and he was like, man, what are the opportunities out there for somebody like me? And it's a really good question. So I wanted to kind of open this up a little bit and kind of talk about that, because there are some great opportunities for young people to go out and have a great career in the automotive world. But a lot of times they don't realize all of the options out there. Usually when they think, oh, I want a job in the automotive industry, they think of what I do and build custom things. Well, that's only a small part of it. There's a much bigger world out there that is automotive based. So let's just walk through that. Obviously, the first place is working at some sort of a dealership, and or what we call the OEMs. That's working at Ford, Chevy, Dodge, Toyota, Honda, whatever, working on those vehicles. The only drawback to that is you're kind of working on the same thing every day, but there's a lot of people that really like that and can be a really good career. A second part is, if you don't want to work at a dealership, is to work at a service shop. Now, this is a kind of a broad area. A service shop is anything that offers any kind of service. So this could be working at a Jiffy Lube or a Pep Boys, doing oil changes, doing brake jobs, servicing air conditioning. A lot of these are kind of entry-level jobs. A lot of these, they can train you right on the floor and you kind of work your way into it. But then also, that's the simple part of the service shop. Then the other ones are shops that specialize in certain things, like a Mercedes only, or a shop that works only on BMWs, and they're specialists in those. Now, these guys are really good. These are the ones that you'll take your Beamer or your Porsche or something to, instead of going to the dealership, because they're a little cheaper. And a lot of times they are guys that have come from those dealerships and started their own jobs. So there's that. And the good thing about those brand-specific guys is that a lot of times they'll have a ear to the aftermarket. So let's say if you have a Pontiac Solstice or something like that, and you don't just want to go to the Pontiac dealership, which, well, actually, Pontiac's not around anymore. But let's say you don't want to go to the dealership and have it worked on. You can go to one of these specialists and they'll say, hey, I can put a turbo on this thing, or that kind of deal. So, there's always that. Now, the magic about doing this is if you get really good at something, then people will come to you from all over. And, you can make a lot of money doing that if you're a specialist in a certain area, like a Jeep or whatever. So that's another area that you can get involved in. Then there are shops that are more aftermarket parts, modification sort of places. These are places that don't do general mechanic work, and they don't do, necessarily brand specific stuff. Their big thing is automotive aftermarket add-ons. Pretty much bolt-on stuff. So these are the guys that'll put on your lift kits and your superchargers and lower your suspensions, put on your flares, change out your body panels, put in custom seats, cat skin seat covers, that kind of thing. That's a big market, but that's a completely different market than that OEM factory dealership sort of mentality. You can make a lot of money doing that kind of stuff. And the good thing about those sort of projects is that they're usually in and out pretty quick. You can usually do those modifications in a few days. They're in, they're out. There's a pretty good return on it. And there's a lot of people that want that. The problem with those places are those are the ones that all the government crackdowns are coming after. And there's a lot of states now that won't allow you to lift a vehicle more than a couple inches, or you can't modify the exhaust, or you can't do this. There's a lot of regulations that are coming down. So if you have that kind of shop, you have to be aware of that, because sometimes those regulations can seriously bite into your profit margin. There's that to keep in mind. Then another aspect is the paint and body world. And if you want to get into, working at a body shop or doing paint and body, there's all kinds of places, collision shops and that is a very specialized thing. Usually they don't do restorations, they don't do interior work, they don't do motor work. They just focus on paint and body. And so there's a lot of aspects of that. And then, of course, the last one is the guy with the custom shop, that builds custom vehicles, ground up builds, that kind of thing. And a lot of times, a guy like that will farm out some of these specific areas to some of these service shops we talked about earlier. For example, I've got a good friend of mine, his name is Tracy Weaver, is a fantastic interior guy, has a place called the Recovery Room. And I believe that's all Tracy does is interiors. I'm sure he can build a whole car himself, but his big thing is upholstery. And so people send their stuff from all over the nation for Tracy and his guys to work on. And that's what he does. That way he's able to focus on that. He keeps you up to date with what they're doing. And so a lot of guys, even, top-end builders, will send stuff to them just so they don't have to mess with it. So there's a big network of these sort of guys that all work together. So as you can see, there are a lot of aspects of getting involved in the automotive world. And these are just shop and builder things. Now, we haven't even talked about the racing world or the retail world, which would be like working at a O'Reilly or a Pep Boys or something like that, or working at one of the places, like a Holley or an aftermarket company, that build like Bear Brakes or something like that, or painless wiring harnesses. Just an aftermarket company. There's thousands of those out there. And all those guys are building their own cars on the side. So as you can see, there are a ton of ways to get involved in the automotive industry. So if one doesn't seem to be working for you, if you don't think you want to start your own shop, or if you don't want to work at a dealership, man, dig into it. There's a lot in this industry that touches almost everybody in this nation in one way or another. So get out there and get involved, man. The more the merrier. It's a great industry. All right, that wraps it up for us today. Make sure that you check out the Gears TV website. We got all kinds of cool stuff there. We got a couple new die casts coming out. Got some books coming out. We have all kinds of things going on. But the most important thing is get out there and turn some wrenches yourself. Get a project. If you don't have one, start working on it. And if you don't have tools, check out Cornwell. They can help you out there.